Morning, Facebook. This is how the day starts every day. I pretty much, well, it starts earlier than watching the Tour de France, but watch the tour there, and this is my daily commute, right over here to the Airstream studio. Watch your heads. Huh?
My commute.
How we looking, Dave? It's good. Good. It's good. Oh, I gotta make myself a little taller. This is what I do every day. You guys probably don't see that.
You're giving away secrets.
His eyes are bad. His hair is gray, and he's short. Shit happens. Oh no!
Another
First
dollar.
bad word.
Another
We'll
dollar.
get to that. All right, y'all doing good? What day is today?
Friday.
Say hi, JB.
Friday the 7th. It's flying by.
It's a good number.
I know at the beginning of this Stages podcast, you feel like you're settling in for what's going to feel like it's a whole year of work. And now it's almost a third over.
Yeah.
It just happens fast.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't feel that way when you're pedaling your bike, though.
You'd be surprised. I don't know. We were trying to... This shows you how dumb I am when it comes to Facebook and Facebook Live. Like, oh, it says live.
There you go. Open that.
I was trying to pull that because, from what I understand, you people watching send in questions.
They send in questions and comments in real time.
I have it. Oh, here now. Look. That's me. That's too weird. I can't look at that.
It's going to be distracting. It's a blessing and a curse.
No,
you know,
I can't look at that guy.
Right. Comments coming in about you in real time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's a tough one for anybody.
Let's start the podcast. How's this? Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, we ready, JB?
We're ready.
Y'all ready? Okay. Wait, what am I going to say at the start?
You picked the winner again.
Oh, yeah. In my opinion, never mind, I'll say it here. Okay. Welcome back to the Stages podcast, covering Stage 7, or recapping Stage 7. Hang on, is there some reason there's like a lot of static in my thing? Here, check it.
It sounds pretty good to
Hold
me.
on. That doesn't sound so good, sorry. Seriously, that will get annoying after half an hour. Do you hear me? Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, that's not the norm.
That's not the norm, dudes and dudettes.
Check that adapter. Or slide that cord to me underneath.
This mine?
Mm-hmm. Well, over the top line.
Over the top. This is a first sort of technical difficulty. We tried the phone thing. That sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that box.
Give me a little volume there, JB. JB saw a bear last night.
No. You know, all the hype. Everybody's been telling me about bears since I got to Aspen. Especially since there's a broken window, which was an accident. First night, a window broke on the Airstream studio. So everyone's been putting the fear in me about bears. And I just thought, oh, that's just a local thing. You know, like in Texas, we'd say worry about rattlesnakes as it starts to warm up. I've never seen one in my life.
Yeah,
I've been in Texas since I was 12, and I have not seen a rattlesnake. So I figured it was a bunch of local, let's mess with the Texan kind of thing.
Which they like to do.
Right? And put the fear in me about bears.
Right.
So I bear-proofed the broken window with the help of Dave Bulge. And then last night, walking from the thriving downtown metropolis that is Aspen, and I'm walking back to my truck. I go to a crosswalk. It's getting dark. I mean, the sun's going down. And I'm going across the crosswalk. And just as I step onto the street, and just to help you out, it's down by Clark's, the grocery store. There's a rugby field behind you. I'm crossing the street, and a bear comes running at the crosswalk towards me. Towards me. And it happens so fast. Like, if he had just been sitting there, I think I would have crap my pants.
Yeah.
But just staring at me. Instead, he was running, so there wasn't really time for me to even... By the time I figured out what it was and what was happening,
pretty cool.
This bear had just run by me.
We're glad you survived. It was tough. Tough moment. All right, now let's go. Let's do this. All right, here we go. We're rolling. I guess I just go.
We're rolling,
okay.
Yeah.
Sit up tall. All right, welcome back to the Stages podcast. I'm Lance Armstrong, my host over here, co-host JB Hager. We're talking about Stage 7 here on July 7th. JB, I was again proud of myself in a weird way that I picked the winner. But in watching the stage, and I guess I don't know the rules that well. I almost would have just given it to both. The photo finish, and for those of you at home who were listening and haven't watched, I mean, the sprint finish between Marcel Kittel and Edward Bosenhagen, which, by the way, Bosenhagen hasn't been this fast in a long time.
Okay.
I mean, he's not that guy anymore. But it was so I couldn't tell, and I think most people that watched at home and saw the photo finish, I mean, I don't know if there's ever a time where you say this is a tie.
And they both get the points. They both get first.
I don't know.
First for that
divide them
day.
up, divide them by two. But I don't know how I don't know how you decide. I mean, I guess there's some formula or rule that says that Kittel's motion at the line was clearly quicker.
He was accelerating.
Yes, than
through the finish.
Bosenhagen. But if the rule was what does the picture show, that was a dead tie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just a heartbreaker. There's so many heartbreakers in cycling, that one's tough to swallow when you literally are a photo finish where everyone who looked at it couldn't distinguish a winner.
Yeah. And before that, it's interesting because to me it looked like a nervous day. You had smaller roads, you had more wind than we've had in previous days. I thought the same thing about yesterday, and then as I was watching the broadcast today, one of the broadcasters said that Chris Froome actually said that yesterday I said that was not an easy day. Well, Chris Froome said that was the easiest day he's ever had in the Tour de France. See? Shows you what the difference is between being there and sitting on
You
your
don't know
couch
what
in
it feels
Colorado.
like, right?
We just don't know.
But today looked tougher, and one of the things I wanted to talk to you about.
We actually saw we talked about echelons yesterday. We actually saw a couple today.
Yeah, it was in full effect today.
Yeah.
Not to the point where it splits the field, which could come into play. That's something to watch on one of those flat days with high winds. Never saw it split. Never even saw like a second echelon going. But I want you to go in more detail about that because it's a hard thing to do, a proper echelon, and it's tricky, and then you get guttered, and when do you make the second echelon?
Yep.
And what are the teams doing for the GC guys during that? Because that's a very real opportunity to cross wheels.
Right. So it's well, first of all, the wind, right, is always, there are things in the sport that are factors. There are obviously mountains, and there's temperature, and there's weather like rain, and then there's wind. I mean, there's these things that tactically you can use to your advantage. And so you look at it today. Today was not a great example, but maybe we'll see a day. Typically you see it like in the spring classics where it is truly windy and exposed. That's the other thing, is it has to be exposed. If you're riding through town and there's a bunch of buildings, or you're riding through the forest, it doesn't work that well. And finally, before I get to my point, crosswind, it has to be the right crosswind. Crosshead doesn't work. Mm-hmm. The perfect storm is cross tail. So you get a strong cross tail, more cross, less tail, but still tailwind, you can absolutely destroy a bike race. So if a team, then this is where I get to my point, if a team, they know the forecast. If the forecast is they know the course, they know the forecast. If the forecast is for high winds and high cross tail wind, they will spend hours studying the maps in the book, taking it a step further, going to Google Earth. The map in the book doesn't tell you where there's trees or not trees. So they'll study that the night before. They'll also study it in the race, right? Most of these cars are actually streaming the race live, but you could still on an iPad go to Google Earth. You know where a left turn is coming, or right. You know where all these, the minutia of the course are coming into play, and then they'll talk to their guys. Hey, this court, slight bend to the right in 2K, and exposed.
Okay, this is starting to make some sense to me, because a straight up tailwind is just pushing on the back of the peloton.
Straight up tailwind, they stay together across the road.
But
Straight up headwind, they stay together across the road. Anytime that wind moves either side, left or right, you'll see the pack actually start to thin out, right? And then if you just get that perfect angle of cross tail, it explodes.
The other thing I have a hard time processing.
If somebody, if somebody wants to open up the race or animate the race, then the field snaps.
So when it's crosswind and it's a sprint finish, of course, everyone's goal is to stay in the front. You always hear it. Even as an amateur bike racer, there's so many reasons to stay in the front. But you're doing it at an elite level where any of these guys can move to the front, right. But there's only so much room. So define being in the front. Is that the top 30 people?
Yeah, that's close enough.
But you can't do that when there's 190 riders.
30 of them can?
30, I know.
Speaking of 190 riders, I want to, not right now, but I want to talk about, because we got a question sent in about the new rule starting, I think, next year, where they're going to reduce the size of the teams in the tour. So, if you have 20 whatever teams, you take away 20 some odd riders. We can get into that. I think it's a great question. And an initiative that I completely disagree with. Shocker to some people. So we can talk about that later.
Okay.
Or we can talk about now. Are we done with the wind? One thing I want to talk about with the wind, because we're talking about the wind on a day that's basically flat. People ask me all the time when they're watching the mountains, which we're going to start to see again tomorrow, and they see you're going to see Chris Froome with 2 or 3 teammates. They say, is he drafting or is he pacing? Are they pacing?
Yeah, right. Is it a tempo thing or is there actually poles?
So normally the answer to that is that is a pacing thing, and also just a message to say, hey, I'm here, I'm not isolated, I have 2 or 3 or 4 teammates with me. Having said that, if the climb is not that steep like we're going to see tomorrow, and wind can become a factor. If you have headwind on a climb, it neutralizes the climb. If you have tailwind on a climb, and I'm talking real wind, tailwind on a climb, it animates the climb, because then when you have tailwind on a climb and you're going that slow, you're getting 0 draft. It really opens up the race.
Okay. Break this down for me too. I know your forte was not sprinting, but there's a team plan all the time in the radio communication. And I love watching the lineup and the teams going to work for their sprinters and keeping them safe, keeping them up front, keeping the pace high. There's all those things. When does that, 2 questions. When does that plan kick in? Is it 5K, 3K, 2K? And do they have it mapped out? Like, it's going to be this rider, this rider, this rider, then your sprinter. Okay,
most of these teams will have, like you saw at the end of the stage today, you had Orca Green Edge, or Orca Scott, I don't know what they're called now, Orca Scott, I guess I should know, but you saw them at the front of, without a sprinter, they were protecting their top GC guy, the white jersey, Yates. They had the field strung out. They were simply, and they put that plan in place yesterday, is my suspicion, just to keep him out of trouble, keep him safe. That last section, I think most people knew, especially as the day went on today, was going to be crosswind, and crosswind equals danger. Your GC guy, you keep him out of trouble. But first part of the question, those plans are made at the team meeting at the latest. The order of those guys, that can change around just because you can't. Nobody's that good and nobody's that perfect. I mean, people have a bad day, or people just don't end up at the right place at the right time, and they have to find their way back up there, and they're out of order. Those good teams, like you saw at the Quick Step today, and that order can change at any moment.
Is there an etiquette to letting a lead out train get set up? Like, if you look to your right and this guy's trying to get to your left, is there any etiquette of letting them do it, or that's like, sorry buddy, it's too late?
I don't know that part of the sport that well. I suspect it's every team for himself.
Yeah.
When it comes to,
because that's part of the strategy too. If you're preventing this guy from getting in his own lineup, that's.
And you saw it today. I mean, I suspect that's the reason that Marcel Kittel barely won or tied the bike race today. Is he was back? He was deep in that peloton late in the race, and he found his way to the front. He was on the way, but as soon as the sprint started, even when he had 2 or 3 guys in front of him, you could see the mask He was hurting. It didn't look like he had the other days, and I think it took him a lot of work to get, which hats off to him for still winning, but it took him a lot of work to get from where he was up to his guys.
Let's talk about watts. We have had a lot of comments and questions about watts, and people are wanting to know this, and you got your hands on some pretty interesting information about Greipel, which, if you know anything about watts, your jaw is about to hit the floor when Lance tells you what kind of watts he's putting out in a sprint.
Yeah, well, now's probably a good time to apologize to the entire country of New Zealand. I'm still getting a lot of shit for calling Greg Henderson an Australian and even attempting to pull off an Aussie accent.
And saying they all drink Fosters.
Yeah, such an idiot. And saying, just said a bad word. That's a buck for the family. I don't know where you guys are, but you made the custard. That's another buck. But so Greg Henderson, he's the one who sent in the direct message on Twitter the other day about how sprinters do actually get scared, which I believed. He sends me when I wake up this morning to a direct message, and he must have access to Andre Greipel's power file from the sprint yesterday. Maximum power in the sprint, 1,790 watts at 74 kilometers an hour. Hello, and granted, Greipel's a big guy, but 1,800 watts. Hello.
That's even hard to fathom.
And Kittle came around him like he was standing still. So, and he's also a big guy. So that.
What was Kittle pushing?
I mean, more than that.
1,800. Like, for Joe average rider, like say they're pushing up a climb.
A Joe average rider, 300 watts.
300 watts.
They can't do that very long at all.
Right.
And I mean, it's mind-boggling. And the speed. I mean, for the American listener, 74 kilometers an hour is 45, 46 miles an hour.
That's unbelievable. That's remarkable.
And if you hit the ground at that speed, I mean, we talked about it in one of the earlier episodes, like, hey, get your spandex on, I'm going to drive you down Main Street, jump out at 30. Try jumping out at 46.
That's unbelievable. And I want to give this some context for our, forgive this if you're hardcore.
JB, can I say just one other thing?
All right.
Because a shout out, I really appreciate my Kiwi friend Greg sending me these things. He says, and he's just so funny. A lot of this I can't read. I mean, I'd be putting a lot of money on that jar if I read it all. He says, P.S. If you need a good coach, old man, this Kiwi known as CoachHindy.com, Coach Hindy, HENDY.com, will tear you a new second one. So shotting at lunchtime will become a normal occurrence. Love you, bro. I think I'm good.
I don't even know.
CoachHindy.com. Yeah. But coach, I didn't realize you were coaching. Greg.
Somebody threw this out too. The real Billy C said, "Please start today's episode with a whistle notifying everyone looking the wrong way." That was classic.
Yeah.
Of course, that's in reference to Contador, who goes down the mountain blowing on a pink whistle.
Well, can we talk? Let's talk about the people that watched the race, because we saw it. They showed some highlights from yesterday where, and you guys, and you're sitting there going, how is, people are leaning over the barriers in the sprint. They've got their cameras. One person had a flag flying. And I think most people see that and they're so surprised. And I see that and I'm like, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Do you know how many first-time fans or first-time trips to the Tour de France that some people make? They've never been.
Mm-hmm.
If a lady
is
60 years old and she's maybe just gotten into, or maybe she's just there, she's like, oh, cool, here's the barrier, I'll hang over. She has no idea that somebody's going to come by at 46 miles an hour this close from the rail.
They can't fathom the speed.
They just can't fathom it. So you're going to lean in, you're going to take a photo, you might fly your flag. You just, that just, people get shocked by that. I'm like totally not shocked. That doesn't surprise me. People just don't get it.
And they don't think about bringing things like their dogs, their pets to an event, which they shouldn't, their umbrella that might get loose, which we saw. And the other thing to keep in mind, too, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and those people got there early in the morning, and they've been drinking all day. So you're dealing with newbies.
That's not...
Oh, come on. Come on. That's part of the deal. You go and you drink all day, and you wait for them to come by.
I probably would.
But that's an unusual context. There's no other sport like that where you have drunk people in your path.
Yeah. I mean, I have to show this picture because this is the Wheeler family, and this is the family that that emailed and said, we love the podcast, but could you cut down on the swearing? And then I told the story.
You're trying.
About, I slip up, shocker, all the time around the house. And so, Mikey, I got to pay them $1 every time I say a bad word. So the Wheeler kids, there's 3 of them, they're cute as could be. They actually made a cuss jar with the Stages logo. This is so sick. Can you see that, Dave? I hope my email's not on there. He's got it. Does it work? Can you see these cute kids? And you see the Stages cuss jar?
Oh, God.
We got $4 coming the way to the Wheeler kids.
And a jersey in the background.
Yeah, an old Discovery jersey.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk watts.
No, we already talked watts.
No, this is... I know we talked about the off-the-charts 1,800
Right, that's
watts.
the most extreme example.
Right, that is an extreme
example. Think about it, too, like a match sprint in the Olympics on the velodrome, like those guys, like a track sprinter. I mean, they have to be in excess of 2,000 watts.
Well, I'm just digging into it deeper because I've seen a lot of the feedback. Not every rider, and it's usually, for the most part, bike racers who have watts on their bike. So it's sort of an unknown. And although we're getting a lot of messages from people who have watts on their training bikes.
Or they might have watts on, we see the ads during the tour, the Peloton bike.
That bike has watts,
That bike has watts, and if you go to your your corner gym, I'm sure that bike that you sit on has some sort of watts. I probably, watts are not that easy to measure, and they're not. It's difficult to be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So until not that I'm suggesting everybody go out and buy a $2,000 power meter, but that's really the only way. We're getting that number from Andre Greipel from a power meter that is accurate, 100% accurate, or 99% accurate. What you see, you could just see people going down to their gym on the local spin bike trying to
get 1,709 watts. Yeah. They're going to end up in this.
Whatever. If you get there, you're close enough, and you're awesome. But it's probably not a true number.
When did they start doing watts in cycling training?
That's a great question. Watts came on board. When people started to train in the old days, training was monitored, judged upon what they call your rate of perceived exertion. Okay, JB, go out, do 3 20-minute efforts at between medium and hard. That was the science.
It was a very gray area.
And then came the heart rate monitor.
Yeah.
And then training was based really on that. So go out and stay in this zone. And then power came in the mid '90s. And so I first started using power in 1999.
SRM?
The SRM. And then, and as far as I can tell, I know a lot of other people are making power meters now. But that's the most precise and best way to sort of pick those zones, right? Mm-hmm. So the heart rate can be deceiving. Temperature affects the heart rate. Altitude affects the heart rate. Your level of fatigue affects your heart rate. Mm-hmm. Your diet. All these things affect heart rate. So power is a much more precise science.
Very cool. You mentioned that incredible speed that Greipel had, and of course we've been talking about Kittel, his amazing acceleration, and you were bringing up there's a lot of changes in stiffness of the bike. What we started talking about while we were watching today, and you look at those massive sprints, you're talking about nearly 1,800 watts. It just is a testament to carbon bikes now. Like, you think that would split a bottom bracket apart.
Right. That's not going to happen. But and also the wheels. Think about, to me, I look at it and I think more about the stiffness of the wheel. At 1,800 watts, listen, no matter how many watts you're putting out, and no matter how great you think your bike is, it is flexing.
I remember back in the day, the sprinters, before they would hit the final sprint, would reach back and release their back brakes because their wheel would flex so much.
I hope they don't do that anymore. But you can imagine that, everything is flexing. The handlebars are flexing. The stem is flexing. You're not seeing it, but it is moving. So the frame is moving. The wheels are moving. And so the stiffer you can get those things, the straighter and the more efficiently you're moving forward.
But over time, over a 3-week period, obviously if you're a sprinter, you want the stiffest bike you can possibly have. But a stiffer bike is more fatigue. I'm thinking of the Joe average rider. If they're wanting to buy a bike, stiffer might not be the best thing for you physically.
I got news for you. These guys riding in the Tour de France on those bikes, that is the same bike that you're going to go down to the store and buy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make custom bikes anymore. This is not... All of my years racing the Tour and riding the Trek, those were off-the-shelf bikes. And when I first went to the team, I thought, well, maybe customize some things.
No.
They said, no, we don't do that. So your customization comes down to your length of stem, your width of bar. I mean, you can change the fit with those things, but the way that carbon is manufactured now, and the expense that they go to build the molds and manufacture, you can't customize. It's too expensive to customize.
And they want the fan to know they can go buy the same bike that they're riding.
I think the fan probably expects that they have custom stuff, but I'm here to tell you they don't. So you should feel good about it at home. You get the same bike as Marcel Kittel. Now they may have some prototype stuff. There may be years where they have stuff before it hits the market, but that ultimately is what the consumer will buy. And if I'm wrong about that, I'd be surprised. But if I'm wrong, I'd like to know. Hey, can I say something right quick? Again, this is just a huge shout out to people that have tuned in and listened to this thing. I was playing golf yesterday afternoon. I got a text from the team with the current ranking on iTunes, the sports ranking, the sports division, number 2, behind only ESPN's 30 for 30, ahead of Colin Cowherd, ahead of Pardon My Take, or whatever, and Pardon the Interruption, ahead of Bill Simmons. What? I can't. And if you people thought that I started this and expected that, you're wrong. You're wrong. Because I'm just so shocked and humbled and thankful that people are listening. It just, and then I scrolled down and the forward is at number 8. I had 2.
That's huge.
I don't even know what to say. I love it. God.
No, it's impressive. Do you know how many people are clamoring to get on a recommended list like that? It's very competitive.
This wasn't a recommended list. This was a ranking.
Right.
The recommended thing was the one you talked about yesterday.
The new and noteworthy one.
This is a rank, like, what?
Right.
And that didn't even factor in. Look at these people on Facebook Live.
I know. I kind of freaked out looking at it. It was right next to 30 for 30, or right behind that. That's what's first. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's a great show.
Yeah.
That they turned into a podcast.
The moral of that story is just big fat thank you.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
We got an interesting article sent to us about money payouts for riders. And
it was a great question.
Yeah, people are often wonder what the payout is for riders, and there's about just over 2 million euros worth of prize money offered during this Tour de France. It starts to break down in some interesting ways, but compared to other major league sports, it's
Oki Stein. How about that for butchering somebody's name? Oki Stein. So he sends 2 articles, right? One is an article about the prize money in this year's Tour de France, and then there's another article with about the prize money in Wimbledon. So you have 2 events that are going on at the same time,
international,
that are both getting global exposure. The best athletes in the world in those particular sports. I took it a step further, and then I went online and looked, because the last week of the Tour de France is the Open Championships in Great Britain. So one of the major one of the 4 major golf events of the year. I looked at that prize money. So think of it. Here's I'm going to give you a couple data points. And one of them, which just super pisses me off. All right, first of all, one of the events, and we know which one we're talking about, lasts 3 weeks. Wimbledon lasts 2 weeks. The Open lasts 4 days. The prize money for the 4-day event, the winner, the individual winner, the guy, this is what Homeboy takes home, $1.8 million US. Wimbledon, so a little harder effort, 2 weeks. The winner, both male and female, take home $2.5 million. Now, point B on Wimbledon, the prize money has, since 2011 till today, the prize money's doubled. And so in just 6 years, we've seen it double. The winner of the Tour de France is going to take home 500,000 euros, and it hasn't changed. When I was winning, it was 500,000 euros. It has not changed. What?
And isn't there?
And it's the hardest of all. I just keep, I can't. And by the way, too, much different, obviously, in golf. The winner share probably gives his caddy 10%. In tennis, I'm sure there's some split with a trainer or a coach. The winner of the Tour de France, the 500,000 euros that he gets, he sees 0%. I mean, he sees 0.0 cents of $0. He gives all of that money to the team and the staff, and he probably kicks in a little more of his own bonus to the team. But the fact that it hasn't changed, Wimbledon's doubled in 6 years. The fact that they're all 5x, 3x, 4x, it's not right.
It really is crazy. It really is crazy. And then people would go, well, there's all your individual sponsorships.
Great.
But it's only, I know, but out of the 198 at the beginning, what percentage of those make a really good living from sponsors? 5% of them, 10% of them?
They all, well, that's complicated because it's not, their sponsors are included in the team deal. Very few of these guys have side deals.
That's what I was wondering.
You might could get a sunglass deal if you were a regular winner. You might could get a shoe deal, but you can't go get a bike deal or an apparel deal or a helmet deal. That's all covered under the umbrella of the team. So,
and we talked about it yesterday. The team's not making money over the course of a season.
Right.
It's all money in, money out.
Yeah.
How do we fix this?
I think I don't. I just think, again, that's a whole. It's such a just a black hole. It's tough to say. But to me, those things stand out. You see the difference in the difficulty of the events. You see the difference in the total prize money. But the thing that sticks out the most is it hasn't changed. Like, how can it not go up? What?
In 20 years. All right.
Hey, one other thing I do want to say, because I woke up to this and I saw some of the stuff in my Twitter feed. The Tour de France is not the only bike race going on in the world. There's another men's professional race in Austria, and then there's the women's Giro d'Italia, the women's Tour of Italy. And there was a terrible, and we don't yet know how bad it was, but Claudia Creti, C-R-E-T-T-I, is in the race, an Italian girl, crashed going downhill. The reported speed was 90 kilometers an hour, which is 55 miles an hour, hit her head on the guardrail and is in a coma. And I mean, think about that. I mean, we've talked about speed, we've talked about danger. We don't know what caused the crash, but she's not doing good. And so just, from us here in Colorado, big shout out to her and her fans and family and everybody in that race. Imagine seeing, just seeing that. You're never the same again.
We, of course, have seen how quickly that can happen. People getting taken out of the race, and then the head injury is crazy. That could happen so easily. Cool of you to give her a shout out. I'm thinking about her. Can I read some messages to you?
Yeah.
Millard Allen, love the shirt. I think they're talking about the Suffer shirt. A lot of people wanting this. Love your candidness. It's your forte. It suits you well.
Thank you.
Enjoying the podcast.
Have I mentioned that it's just total bullshit that the prize money hasn't increased? Another $1.
That's crazy. Catherine writes, for someone who complained about a few swear words, I was for one happy to hear you be a normal human being. I think we read that one already.
Yeah. That's how that. You can edit that out.
Why? I got to get the new comments. I pulled up the old page.
We'll just talk about tomorrow.
No, in a second.
Okay.
Here we go. Loving the pod. Want to get a How to Suffer T-shirt.
So it's interesting. So we for the regular listener of my regular podcast, The Forward, I've talked about this. There are no ads on that particular podcast. For now, I've also been very honest that at some point there'll be some advertising on there. I'm sensitive to the fact that I know that the fan, the listener, might think that this is a grab and so I don't want that to be the perception. So I've been real careful with the forward. This particular operation is not a free operation. You have to be here with this. All this has to be here. So we needed to try to cover some costs. We have a great partner in SeatGeek. But what did along the way was, in wearing We Do gear and We Do hats, people was like, where can I get the hat? Where can I get the hat? Where can I get the jersey? I thought, well, let's just make an online store. And I'm as dumb as it gets when it comes to technology, so I don't know how to do that. But the guys back in Austin put up a store, WeDoShop.com. So we've got some hats. The hats already sold. The hats sold out in about an hour.
That just went live this morning.
This morning. They're sold out, so there'll be those. There'll be new ones soon, I think.
Oh, and if you want something that's sold out, like the hats, you can go to WeDoSport.com and sign up to get an email when the new merch is out.
Yeah, that we'll let you know. And then WeDoSport.com. But yeah, so we threw some merch up there, try to cover some costs, and the response has been amazing. Thank you very much. And sorry, stuff is selling out, but I guess that's the good news. We'll make more and let you know as soon as it's ready.
I really like the Suffer T-shirt. I think that's going to be really popular.
Surprised. I love the word suffer, and clearly we're talking about the tour. Everybody in this bike race loves that word too, in their own weird way. And I said, let's make that up. Let's see what that looks like. And it's been the one. I thought maybe like this shirt would be the most well received. Suffer's been the one that everybody talks about.
Grab those and get on the list if they sell out on you.
I love that people love the Suffer.
Somehow that message is lost on my body. You know, when you put it on this physique and you see Suffer, it's intended for the people looking at me.
We haven't seen it on you yet.
I tried it on when you weren't looking. It wasn't pretty. Hayden John White writes, "Come on, Lance, my beauty, get on Zwift."
Zwift. I think it's Zwift.
Zwift.
Yeah.
So we can race you and lose. By the way, Foster's is rat's piss, and all Kiwis hate being called Aussies.
Which is just like gang up on Lance Day. I got all those things. That won't happen again. Zwift is not for me. I don't. My golfing buddies make fun of me because I never go to the driving range. I say, why don't you go to the driving range? Why don't you practice a little bit? Why don't you go hit balls? I said, when I want to go ride my bike, I go outside. I don't sit inside and attach it to something. And I know it's hugely popular. I know people love to compete with each other. And I know, and by the way, too, I know a lot of people live in places like London and Berlin in the winter, and they can't go outside. But I don't. I live in Austin or I live in Colorado. I get to go, I can't. The idea, I run hot. I don't want to sit on a stationary bike and just like projectile sweat everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so you won't see me there. Sorry.
Even in bad weather.
But
I'd rather be outside.
If it's bad weather, I'll go to the gym or I'll not do anything. But I do understand why it's become so popular, because not everybody lives in a place where they can go outside every day. Or they might live in the middle of a city where there's a lot of reasons. But those aren't my reasons.
Yeah. On that note, Harley writes us and says, Lance, when you go biking after the podcast, which you've talked about, where do you bike? How much are you riding per day? Do you ride more during the Tour de France being in session?
It's been interesting because I'm a morning person, so I like to get up early and get my day started and get out on the bike early and get it over with. This entire production has taken more of the day than I thought. I figured, okay, the stage finishes at 9:30. We'll start at 9:35, and I'll be on my bike at 10. It just hasn't worked that way, and I'm not complaining. It's been amazing, but this is so my rides are now shorter, and so if I can steal an hour or two, then that's kind of enough for me.
But you go to an effort. This is just a mindset I think that you have. Maybe you can expound on it. Like where a lot of us, the Joe average person, we sort of tally up excuses as the day progresses. Oh, I got busy. Oh, the podcast ran long. Whatever it is. And so we bail on the ride. Yeah. No. You squeeze it in.
I have to do it.
I've seen you do it already since we've been here.
In fact, if we've been here for 35 minutes, we need to. I got it. You were taking. This is 2 days in a row you've taken away from my stuff.
All right, we're gonna move on because
I want to talk about tomorrow.
Two more quick questions.
Okay.
2 more quick questions.
Very quick.
All right. This is just a comment. Aruna Shah says, "Damn, I love you, and now I learned you listen to Iron Maiden.
Oh,
and
yes.
Now I love you." 666 times more.
Up the irons, baby.
I wouldn't have pegged you for an Iron Maiden fan. One more, Jonathan Barboza. Once I saw a dude using a bike bell during the Iron Man, signaling he was passing. So that goes right up there with Contador's whistle.
You know, bike bells are not as uncool as you think. I mean, I did the 24-hour race with George Hincapie, Dylan Casey, and Christian Vandevelde. The bike bell's almost mandatory when you're doing laps and you're coming around people. It's single track, and you don't, instead of saying, hey,
Over and over.
ride her up, the bell is just a little more courteous. And it just, and also too, it's interesting. Like if people are listening to music, the bell gets, it almost seems like it pierces that jam session that they're in a little better.
They're Maiden.
And they may not pierce Maiden. No, but nobody pierces Maiden.
Not even a bike bell.
Yeah. Can we talk about tomorrow?
Let's talk about tomorrow.
Tomorrow's interesting. We're back. We are back in the mountains. I think if you just look at the profile, to me it's deceiving, right? That looks like a very tough day. That looks like it almost looks like an uphill finish. You have the plateau towards the top. But when you get down to it, it's only a Category 1 only, but it's not a horse category, what we talked about a few episodes ago. It's at 11.7%. It's 11.7 kilometers. It's 6.4%. That's not a tough climb.
Okay.
Guys can hang in on that climb, and then, you know, this flat piece at the top, it almost neuters the race, right? People know that they have the opportunity to come back. They know that if they did attack, that people are going to come back. It just that doesn't demoralize, but
if you guys go off the front at that summit, the flat part before the finish, they could reel it back.
I want to make two predictions if I could. I know you're not supposed to get two, but if the group stays together, my favorite is Dan Martin. So notable that Quick Step would then win 3 days in a row, but I think he's climbing well enough to be there. He's the fastest. If you had 20 climbers that survived that climb, he's the fastest of those guys. He has the nose to win, knows how to win. He has that nose. But my other prediction, and I think I feel even stronger, but I think there's a real potential for a breakaway to go and stay away tomorrow. I think if it has to be the perfect mix, right?
Oh, you're talking about the random breakaway.
The random breakaway that goes early, that since this climb is not that hard, even if they've been out there for 100 kilometers or for 2 or 3 hours, they can still get over it and get to the finish. And if it has to be the right mix where Team Sky and Chris Froome are comfortable that they are up the road. There's plenty of guys in this bike race that are 20 minutes down. Give them 10 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But you don't get to pick who goes in the group, right? That picks.
It has to be a non-threat overall. Right?
They pick that for you, and then you decide if it's kind of a math formula. But if it stays together, Dan Martin's winning, but I almost feel stronger that something gets away and stays away. I don't know why. A little spidey sense.
All right. It was Nate Brown's birthday.
Happy Nate Brown and Bob Roll. Happy birthday, boys.
26. We don't know about Bob. Any guesses?
106? That's what he weighs now.
He's tiny, man.
Yeah.
Somebody who's listening to us got a picture with him pretending he was eating a cheeseburger. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Get your merch. Some of it's gone already. The We Do hats are gone already.
Gone.
But
we haven't paid attention in a minute, but I'm sure we'll refill the
we'll get it.
kitty.
Yeah, We Do Shop. WEDU shop.com. If something you want to go get is sold out already, if you go to WeDoSport.com, you can put in an email. We'll let you know as things get refilled. How's that? Share this link, the RSS feed, subscribe, stagespodcast.com for all your friends to get them the info.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.
You jumping on the bike?
I got to go get my suffer on. Who does? We do.
I'm going to get that Suffer shirt on. It's not going to be pretty.